questions. Please, 1 minute, no speeches.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Sahar Taman. I have a question to both Professor Aslan and Professor Ramadan about the use of the Israel-Palestine issue in terms of democracy. Because on the ground, many people at the grassroots level use that because in many ways that's their voice. That's what they can talk about. What about the idea that if they had the right to talk about local government, can I have a better school? Can I even talk to my son's teacher? Does the water system work? If they were engaged at that level of democracy, because democracy is local, wouldn't the Palestine-Israel issue really be off the table for most of the Muslim majority? Probably an unpopular idea here, but...
And for the sake of time, I'm going to take 3 questions at a time. So please write down the questions so we can answer them together. Okay, 2 more questions.
Assalamu alaikum. By profession, I'm doctor and past president of the Islamic Society of Baltimore. I have 3 issues to talk about. One is the Palestinian issue. I always hear Palestinian-Israeli issue, but nobody talks in terms of justice and human rights. It is a superpower. Superpower should stand for justice and human rights. And number 2 is democracy. Democracy, when Senior Bush invited the American Muslim Council, I was there, and I asked him that in the world there are 5 billion people. 3 billion people are free to elect their own governments, 2 billion are not. I said 1 billion are Chinese, and 1 billion Muslim masses are ruled by rulers who rule by tyranny, terror, conceit, and coercion, fear and fraud. Why United States of America support them? And about Islamists, the media has admitted one thing: the Islamists will have one man, one vote, one time, and then it will go. And because they think that as soon as Islamists will come, they will have a Sharia law. Just briefly, Noah Feldman wrote a beautiful book called The Fall and Rise of the Islamic State. Beautiful book, everybody should read. And he writes about the Sharia, and I quote, in the minds of Westerner and even some secularized Muslims.
Dr. Saeed,
I'm sorry.
You've exceeded 1 minute, that's it. Sorry.
Finish. The stands for the covering of women and administrating corporal punishment for thieves and adulterers, but the true meaning of Sharia is, of course, law itself, and just not any law, but the divine law that governed the Islamic State through centuries of its success. So
that's more than half a sentence.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Tajuddin from Afghanistan. 2 questions. One, in Afghanistan there is a say that you cannot clap with one hand. So you have to have 2 hands. It's true that the Western world have an important role, but I believe the role of the Muslims themselves is even crucial. We have to combine the 2, and the West can provide the better way for that. Unfortunately, as far as I see in Afghanistan, they are not doing that. So hopefully they will. And second, the question of democracy, the way West is imposing, it says, in Afghan says, it's a very nice belly dancer, but put on rock to dance. So the West should not impose the Western democracy style on the Muslim. But we Muslim, I'm asking you the question, how we can come up with one conclusion that will meet all the democracy rules as well as the Islamic rules. For example, the human rights issue, these other issues, Muslim has to answer that.
Thank you very much. Quick answers.
Okay, I'll just be very brief, and I'm sure I'll forget something, but I think that Dr. Saeed's comment and Noah Feldman is absolutely correct on this. I mean, this issue of Sharia, which poll after poll has shown that pluralities in most Muslim majority states want, is misunderstood in the West. When an Egyptian on the street says they want Sharia, what they mean is they want the rule of law. They want to be able to point to something that says this is a law instead of what is the current situation, which is the law is whatever Mubarak says is the law. So of course they want Sharia. The issue about Palestine, of course, is an important one, and one that's unavoidable, and it is absolutely true that the suffering of the Palestinians has become a symbol across the Middle East, and particularly a symbol in these autocratic regimes who more often use the Israeli-Palestinian conflict as a way to deflect any responsibility that they themselves have in the lack of social, political, or economic development in their countries. Can you think of a better reason to deal with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict than that? Because again, I was saying that there's no way we're going to have any kind of political development unless we bring in these Islamist groups, even the problematic ones, into the discussion. Well, if the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is being used to divert these sticky issues of economic and social development by the region's leaders, honestly, I can't think of a better reason to get to settle that conflict than that.
Yes, on one point, I will start with your first point, because on one point I may disagree with you on Sharia. Because I really think that among Muslims, or even Muslim majority countries, there is a very superficial understanding of what we are talking about. And very often for some people, yes, they think that we are faithful to the Islamic teachings when we start with punishment. And some of the groups are like this. But at the same time, which is quite important, and we heard this morning, there is a very deep evolution, improvement in this understanding by some groups now. For example, even in Turkey, for example, not using the concept and speaking about objective, and not even referring to Sharia. So even the terminology, the substance of the words and the concept, it's not only because it's a political strategy. I think that now we are also dealing with people understanding much better what we are talking about, but still the common, the ordinary Muslims, we still have to work with the concept of Sharia. And even, in educated, when we are dealing with Muslims living in the West, when we speak about Sharia, it's just say, okay, we have to start getting a very deep education about what we are talking about here, because it's problematic. But I would say that it's not mutually exclusive. What you are also saying is quite important, is that what they want is a framework where they feel that this is them, they are respected within the framework. Now, there is also something very quickly about the Palestinian issue. It's not mutually exclusive. The fact that the people here, for me it's very important, really to speak about, we are speaking about human rights and we are speaking about dignity. And there are people now, we all know that they are oppressed, that they have no rights, and now we are not speaking about the bounding, but still they are facing a boycott, and they are completely in jail. In fact, this is the reality. So I'm not going to play local citizenship against citizenship on foreign policy. I would say it's exactly the same. We need to have a mindset. I would prefer to push them to be involved here by being involved in the American politics at the local level, in schools. It's exactly the same mindset. This is the way you have to deal with everything. But what I would like is Muslim and American Muslims not only speaking about Palestinians being oppressed, but also other people in Africa and other countries where, for example, you have, even here with the immigration policy in Arizona, for example, that we have also to say something about that. So I would say that this is something which has to do with citizenship, which is not choose to be involved here and stop talking about there. Because you are involved here, you cannot but speak about what is happening there, because it's exactly the same human rights that we are talking about, the same dignity of human people and human being. And the blood of the Afghani is not less valuable than the blood of the American. This is the starting point of our citizenship here, and then that's it then.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to take 3 more questions again, very quick, please.
Okay, my name is Mohammed Shinab from the Voice of America. We are approaching 1 year after Obama's speech in like 2 months. So I would like the 2 panelists to tell us what kind of concrete practical steps you would recommend taking to deliver President Obama's Cairo promises. Thank you.
Thank you. Good question.